And Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Yud Tes, not Yud Tes, daf Tes, and Erev the Gemara for Erev Shavuos. Preparation, the final preparation for Matan Torah. We are up to the Mishnah. So we're continuing on the theme of saying the fun and nectar. Yesterday we introduced the idea that by an eved as well, an eved Knani, when he is set free, released, it's similar to a woman. You have the same similar dinim. You have to say b'fanai nechtam, because we know that by an eved also has to be written lishma, because we learn out lo lo meisha that we equate an eved Knani to a woman. Says the Mishnah. Maybe get maybe we already had this Mishnah previously in the Gemara. If somebody brings a get from overseas, but unable to say before the Gemara will explain, which is the same word we had previously. What do you mean unable? If he never saw, if he was not capable, if he's a chedesh, then obviously he shouldn't have been appointed in the first place. Exactly. If there are witnesses that can verify the signatures, then that's good enough. It's kind of b'chaysom. So we asked from his, if Rabbah holds because Lishma, then how does it help us authenticating the signatures? So he says Shalamdu. It's after we already know the dinim, and even though we made a gzeda, you have to continue with fanenachta, but milsul leishkicha. And it's talking about a case. Remember, he said he was capable of being a shliach, and then he suddenly became deaf and dumb afterwards. Whether it's a get of a woman and whether it's the shichar avonim to release an eved. Shavu lemeilech ulemevi. They have the same dinim when it comes to taking from Eretz Yisrael, chutzlaretz or from chutzlaretz to Yisrael. Zu achas min hadrachim. This is just one in respect. Shavu Gittin Daf, where they're exactly the same. Tais already wonders why the Mishnah says we're comparing the get of a woman to shichar avodim. It's all the way around. We're comparing the shichar of avodim to get because we're deriving it from a get. So Taisa says because the sugi of the Gemara here is Gittin, we're talking about Gittin, so therefore we just say that the Gittin Nashim because it's the last thing we're talking about. So we mentioned Gittin Nashim first. Says the Gemara the same one we had previously. My enu yochel. When we can't say ilay machedesh, that from the outset this person was deaf and dumb. Then asu gitu. How can he be the deliverer of the get? But time we learned hakol shading lahavi say get everyone is capable to bring a get, including women and so on. Chutz mechedesh except the chedesh because they're not shlichus. Gave it to her when she was clever. She was well. He speak loime before them action this chader came deaf. Tais brings it right from here. Tais of him with base brings it right from here that you don't say before the nectar before you give the get. You say it after, because if you give it before, then when this person delivered the get, still couldn't be a chedesh, because then it can't be a shliach. When did he become this chadesh? Only after he gave the get, and then he couldn't say before the nectar, but you already said before the nectar. So the right from here that you said before the nectar after the delivery of the get. And we said last time that that's what makes the words also much more powerful. It's like a ma'aser. Yeah. Actually, in three different respects. They have to be equated to. Number one, when you bring two from Eretz Yisrael to the diaspora, from the diaspora to Eretz Yisrael, both ways you say number one. Number two, and we're going to the whole get. Any get, sheyesh olav eid kusi, any get that has an eid kusi. The next Mishnah will talk about eid kusi more, but that's the nation who who converted out of fear of wild animals and lions, and was always questionable. Their conversion was dubious, whether it was Geire Emes or Geire Arayis. I'm really scared, and they joined the Eden. And even the mayor holds that they were Geire Emes, but later on they were caught all going to the mountain to worship the dove in Hagrizim. That's when they sort of lost their rights. But we'll see later the status of a kusi. So he says a get that an kusi sign and it puzzles. Get of him means star. This is one of the proof that get itself is a generic word which can cover all contracts. When it comes to the get of a woman and the get of an eved, that's the only exception we trust an kusi. Now you notice there's only a single eid here, not two eid. If one of them is an kusi and the other one is a yid, they're kosher. The Gemara will explain tomorrow. The reason why it's kosher is because by a get, we only sign two. The eidim have to be there together. In other words, all other contracts, one aid is called in, he signs, and another aid tomorrow comes, or a few hours later comes in and signs. It's not a problem. They don't have to see each other. As long as they see, they read the content of the star or they saw what had happened, that's good enough.
Establishing site that any time we say hey, means a pair unless you look for it.
That's in the Torah. That's in the Torah. When the Torah says, not in the Mishnah. However, when it comes to a get, we'll see later. There's a reason why we want all the agents to be there together when they sign. So if a Yisrael signed, the same time as a Kusi, it's obvious that they signed together, and the Yisrael would not have signed if this Kusi wasn't reliable. So he knew the guy personally. Otherwise, he would put his name next to it because he's tarnishing his own reputation. And the third one is that this what do you call it? This financial contract, commercial contract, was done in a non-Jewish court, signed by non-Jewish people. It is kosher, except the get of a woman. Because why except the get of a woman? So Rashi says here, because goyim have no shaykhs to the mitzvah of gittin, they have no shaykhs to the inyan of krisis. They're married in the first place, not really married, so therefore, Jewish law, and there's nothing to do with krisis. And because they're not shaykh to the whole inyan of gittin, they can't be a signatory to it. Because it says v'kosav v'nosim, those who are shaykh to the v'kosav, kosav means also the chasmaning, is shaykh to the chasmaning. Because they have no shaykhs to gittin, they have nothing to do with it. But all other shtaras they can. And Rashi says, all other stars they can. Why? So the Gemara will learn in the next few days the famous concept of Shmuel, Dina de Malchus Dina. But Rashi adds something which is a yesod to the whole concept of Dina Malchus, because when we get to it, maybe we'll talk more about it. It's a big machlekes. There's a Torah Rabban. But Rashi, I just quote you Rashi because it's important Rashi to remember. The Rashi is the narrow lines, the first line of the narrow lines. Rashi says, "Aval hadin." No, but we just said Gittin, they cannot sign because they have no relevance, no relationship to it. No, and what about all other contracts? Says Rashi, "Dinin nitztav b'nei noach." They do have a shaykhus to commercial law because one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei noach is called dinin, civil law, and therefore, because they have a shaykhus to civil law, therefore they can write to Gittin. So what's Rashi telling us? Why is the Malchus Adina? Not because some kind of tekkanos are coming, you're living in a Goyish society because of Ava, we don't want any enmity and generates antipathy and so on. We have to behave like them. That's not what it means at all. It means because since the Torah says they have dinin, so Mahat Torah they can sign shtaras because this is their forte, this is their union, it's in their domain. Gitti Nashim, because they have nothing to do with Gittin, they cannot sign. Yeah.
So a guy is not shaykh to be Makadesh. The whole thing is trying to get Christmas.
So I said before, yeah. Exactly.
Can't be Makadesh in the first place.
Exactly. So they don't have. Okay. So this is very important to remember this Rashi because Rashi seems to be explaining that Dimachos is Mahat Torah because that's dinin what they have. Okay, we'll get back to that when we go into Gemara. Okay, Taisus gives actually 3 reasons why Goyim cannot sign. First of all, Taisus says, and one of them is a chiddush of Taisus, like Rashi says in the Shaita Krisis. The second thing is we need lishma, and a goy when you sign because of we sign it includes signatures, and signatories have to be lishma, and they cannot sign lishma. We raised something more before, even according to Rabbi says Eidim Masir Karsa, but we don't want the Eidim signed. We've been mezuyev metoichi. And goyim cannot do lishma because they'll do for whatever reason they have. And even if you're standing on top of them, they do a daita denafshe for their own thing. And then the Taisus says the third thing, which is the chiddush of Taisus, that when the Eidim sign the get, they act as a shliach of the husband. It's a big chiddush of Taisus. In other words, the sefer, we know you have to instruct the sefer, go sign, go write a get, because the Torah says you should write. So therefore, if you have a sefer writing, you have to appoint him as a shliach. Taisus comes along and adds over here. I'll just quote you the Taisus because it's important. The first narrow line Taisus, that goyim cannot be a shliach. We're learning more Kedushin in the second period. Why not? We learn from Truma Gamatim. The ein shlichus leibgechavim, and so what? Because you have to tell the ein to sign, they're acting as a shliach. Not because you're saying, go ahead and just do it. Mashma de boy shlichus. It seems to me that you need shlichus here. And they're no good to shlichus. Chiddush of Taisus. And the Eidim are acting as a shliach of the Baal as well, as if he had to sign, and he's asking them 2 people to sign on his behalf. Okay, anyway, and also the apostle ages and so on. Let's continue the Gemara. Yeah. However, if you follow Rameir's view, there's actually another similarity between Gittin and Gedushin of an Eved compared, as opposed to all other Gittin, all other contracts. What is that? We know there's a concept called that is the Schia that if I'm zachin la'adon shalei b'fanav, I picked up some money and I had you in mind, you're kind of straight away. Because zachin la'adon shalei b'fanav. If let's say you ask me, you're sitting in the if you're sitting on a donkey and you say you see money on the floor, I say to you, do me a favor, 10, pick it up and give it to me. You can keep the money because when you picked it up, I said 10. 10 means hold. I don't want it to become mine until you actually physically give it in my hand. So therefore, you can change your mind. When it comes to a chayiv, when it comes to something bad, ein chavin la'adam el b'fanav. I cannot do something bad for you unless you appoint me to do it, or unless you saw me doing it. I can't just do it and have you in mind. Nothing happens. That's why we had Ger Cotton, the whole discussion how Ger Cotton came out. Is it really good for him or not good for him? So we have a machlekes Rameir and the Chamim for an eved. What's better for an eved? To be free or to be an eved? You can look at it from two sides. As an eved, he has room and board, doesn't have to worry about his provisions and all that. Whole thing here. On the other hand, he's an eved. The one thing that he's missing is freedom. He can live in a palace, but he has no freedom. There's no, self. I guess he doesn't. He's not a master of his own destiny. But that's what Meir's view. Meir holds an eved is happy to live with his master because all his worries are taken care of. Chachamim say no, it's a chayv for an eved to be, because freedom is something you cannot measure. It's worth more than everything else. That's the communism and capitalism and all that kind of stuff. So that's the argument. So what happens? You give a shliach a get to your wife, and on the way there you change your mind. So when a get to a woman is a bad thing, obviously she's divorcing. It's not a happy occasion. So therefore you can always change your mind, because she did not become divorced until she receives the get in her hand. What about you send a get to a woman get to an eved? You're free. Can you change your mind? According to the mayor, no. It's a good thing for an eved to. According to the mayor, yes, because it's a good thing to remain an eved, and if it's bad and calls man is bad, it's not. But according to Chachamim, no. The moment you gave it to Shlei's hand, you be zoicha on behalf of the eved, because after behalf keren nichle, you'd rather be free. So if you follow a mayor who says that an eved has the same din as a get that is bad for you, and therefore you could change your mind, therefore that mayor has a fourth circumstance where they're both the same. Guys, to give this to my wife, they give this to my Evan, but also allow the you can change mind about that. So therefore you have four. Why do we say there are three? Because you might say that four. I'm saying there's only three. You might think like Rab Meir, and I'm telling you no. What's it coming to tell you? That Rab Meir, it's coming to exclude Rab Meir. According to Meir, we said there are four things. What do you have to highlight down number four to exclude what you might think is the fifth thing? What's the fifth thing you might think? To exclude that fifth. To exclude the following. Time we learned. If witnesses do not know how to sign any contract, so what do we do? Is mekadin lehem haniyot. We go ahead. We take this is how Rashi. You take the yar cholok. You take the what do you call it? You make according to Rashi. You take like a scalpel or something, and you etch out. You engrave in this paper in the document they're about to sign their names, and then they just fill it in. Mekalim yar cholok. Umemalim is a crime. Then they fill in this gray engraving. They fill a little bit of ink. That's what he said. That's when can you do that? Only by Gittin Noshim. You can only do that by Gittin Noshim. Why? Because you want to help the woman out. You want to make sure that she's free. So therefore, we're going to make it as easy as possible for the agent to sign so that she can be a free woman. When it comes to Shechuri Avodim, or any other star, if they know how to read, and the more will say in a minute, read, who talk about reading. The lachtem and sign chaysmin, love a chaysmin. But what do you see from here? That according to Shimon Gamliel, Shichure Avodim and Git Noshim are not the same din. Get Noshim will go out of our way to make it easy for the agent to sign if they're ignoramuses and so on. We show we fill in, we etch their names in it. But by Avodim won't do that. But Tanakama says you do for both, and that's what we come into negate when we say that Meir holds our four things coming to negate the opinion of Shimon Gamliel. Okay, now the Gemara just says a side issue. Clear man de kashmei. What do we Eidim don't know how to read? Chsudi mechs. A few words are missing. Vachitani. Eidim she'en yod likrit. If they don't know how to read, koyden lifneim. You actually read for them the chayshim the sign. U'she'en yodim lachten. They don't know how to sign. Mekadin lehem. You do the mekadin. Teach has a problem with that. Isn't that like writing a type of writing? The person who etched the names in, that's already the signature. So and it wasn't the Aiden, it's not even the correct signature, and you have that one person doing both. So Taisha says what they did was they put another piece of paper, put another piece of paper on top of the parchment. Might get usually right parchment. I'll put another piece of paper on top of the parchment. They made bigger holes based on Yeshami. They made bigger holes, and the Aiden then went ahead and put in a little bit in. So it didn't fill the entire space. So therefore, it's their own signature. There's no signature, but it's their own because they controlled a little bit to how much of the signature should be there. Second one further, you tell me that no other examples where Gittin and Shechur are the same. Let me ask a question. What about the following?
Sorry, interrupting. Sounds like all they had to do is put little link dots, and they could join the dots together.
Maybe that's a good question. If you do a little dots all around, but that's if you're standing far away and you look at it, it looks like the full signature. So maybe that'll be a problem because it looks like a signature. It might be worse
if they're too close.
Yeah, if they're too close. If too far, the people maybe won't know what to do.
Yeah,
I mean, we can't imagine that somebody cannot sign their own name. Have you ever met a person who can't sign their own name?
Yes. They put a cross.
Let's say it's family members. They can't. Okay, says the Gemara further, the two dots. There are no other examples where you have unique dinim between get of a woman and the shichur of adim. But there is, if a person says, give this get to my wife, or shtar shichur give this shtar shichur to my eved, v'meis, and he died before they had a chance to give it to them. You cannot give it to him after he died. The Rashi already has a big chiddush that even according to Chachamim that said a minute ago that by an eved, the moment you gave it to the shliach, the eved is free. What do you mean you can't give it to him? He's already free. So Rashi says there are two stages. One stage is you cannot change your mind, and one stage is to be free. And Rashi says over here, Rashi later on changes his mind. Rashi says over here that when we say that when you gave it to the shliach, you can no longer change your mind because it's a schus for the eved is only that far, not any further. As if to say the logic behind Rashi is, in other words, not that he's free already, but he's halfway there. You can no longer change your mind. He still has to get it in the hand. Why? Because it's not a total. At the end of the day, it's sort of tempered. This joy of being free is tempered by the realization that suddenly now he has to earn money and he has to find his own room and board. So it's not a full freedom. It's a schus that has in it some chayiv. And therefore, a schus that has in it some chayiv, Rashi over here felt that it's not a total schus where it already happened and belongs to the other person already. No, it's sort of halfway. Okay, you cannot change your mind, you cannot take it back, but the person's not free until you give it to the hand, because that's what Rashi says over here. And later on, Taisha said Rashi changed his mind because Taisha didn't understand these two stages. He says if it's a schus, it's a schus. Even as a taz chayiv. Actually, it's a big machlek is the shach and taz about a schus in Yeridea, I think Shalom Al, where you have a schus with a little bit of chayiv, like somebody's going into someone else's field and giving truma on their behalf. You're doing a schus, but also you took away their mitzvah. A schus where there's a little bit of chayiv, is that considered a schus or not? Anyway, you cannot give it after mitzvah. Everyone uses Gemara to ask the famous question we once discussed, I think, an argument, the Rambam and the Tur. What happens, it's a very important argument. What happens, you send the shliach to give a get to your wife, and before the shliach arrived, you became crazy, you became a shaita, which means it disqualifies you from giving the get. But you gave it to the shliach when you were perfectly, capable of you're in control of all your faculties. The Rambam says it's a good get. And the Torah says it isn't. And the way we understand the machlekes is the Rambam holds when you appoint a shliach, what happens is at the moment I appointed, I've given over all my, like a power of attorney, I've given you over all my abilities. By power of attorney, it doesn't matter that afterwards I'm no longer capable of making decisions. You have that power. And that's what a shliach is, a power of attorney. And it happened the moment I appointed you. According to the Torah, no, a shliach is you. And therefore, if I can't do it, neither can a shliach. So they ask a question. So why, according to the Rambam, what happened? So the guy died, he gave it to the shliach. That's it, the shliach, he continued, he gave over the whole shlichus. That's the question they ask. Everybody else talks about it. But the question is very hard to understand why it's the question in the first place. Okay, the shliach can still go ahead and divorce the woman, but she's not married anymore. Who are you divorcing? The moment he died, there's no connection between her and him. Because we can learn in Kedushin of Gimel that Misas Abal is one of the ways that a woman, the first mission there, the Misas Abal. So the shliach has a right to give a get to who? That doesn't do the Rambam. The Rambam's case is the woman is still tied to this person. He became a shaita, but she's still connected to the person. So you gave a power of attorney to the shliach, so the shliach can go ahead and divorce him. But over here, okay, the shliach has a right to has all the keiches that you had. Divorce who? There's no one there. Anyway, So I never understood that question, but that's what they all talk about. Let's continue more here. Tnu mana leplani. What about because the money matters? Give money to that person that makes you die. You still give it after the person died. So we see there's another distinction between star and Gittin Daf, which is unique, and shechur avodim, as opposed to all other stars. So why don't we count that as well here? Because we have a rule. If somebody says something to make him feel good, we don't want Chas to cause him any stress whatsoever. So therefore, it's as if it's as if it's already been signed, sealed, and delivered. Says the Gemara, we're not mentioning all cases. What we're doing is we're looking for a common denominator. What's a common denominator? Something that doesn't apply to any kind of a star. Milsa the Isa b'shtaris, something which it does apply to a certain kind of stars. Then like Tani, there is two kinds of stars. One is called star raya, and one is called star kinyan. A star raya, you're right. Nothing happens. But a star kinyan is like a star matana. I'm only give a gift, but what kinyan is it? I'm writing a star to give a gift. So if you gave a star matana as a shliach, if it's a star raya, a star that to prove something that happened, even he died, you still give the star raya. But if it's a star kinyan, I say gave the shliach, look, I want to give this house as a matana to the person. Here is the contract that this contract is going to establish that transaction. You can't give lachamisa. Why? Because the moment he died, the children, and not that the children took over. The moment a person dies, automatically the children took over. It's not his to give. Okay. We find a number of times Rabbeinu is actually referring to not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, which is in Yisrael, but the Rav. Rav is called Rabbeinu in Babel. That is Chimera. Sha'amar Kislu v'tru mana leplenty, right, and give this $100 to a person. The maze ain't kaisi v'naisid. Why? Shemel legamalak noise el b'shtar. That star was the kinyan, and then star lachamis. No, but he wanted that when the star comes to the person's hand, that star is going to affect that transaction. Okay, so I'll give other. What about what we looked at first? Few blots. Well, you can lishma. What about lishma? Something in common between these two stars. A regular star that we done lishma. Remember we said what's the reason say before the to establish whether it was lishma, so it's already included. Who said he dismisses the whole notion about that you have to say for lishma is purely to verify the signature. New kasha, why did you mention lishma? Number one. Number two is another din we already mentioned before. Vesu bein liraba, he can mechuber. It said the kosav and nasa misha ein mechuser el nesina. But if it's mechuser kosav v'ktzitza, you need to have to cut as well. It's no good. No, another day, and any other star. I lend you money. It doesn't matter if it's attached. Not attached at all. Says the Gemara, you're right. Kik tani psul d'rabban. We're only talking about psul d'rabban. For example, for that's why next of these are all psul d'rabban. A kusi is only psul midrabban. Why? Because we generally say that they're possible, but it's only the Rabbanan, they're full-fledged Yidden and everything else. Technically, they should be acceptable. And what about a koyis? We'll see later. The koyis is the Raisa because they're not shaykh. The whole idea of what do you call it? Of kedushin or gittin. So therefore, we'll talk about it later. Anyhow, so the Gemara, well, a koyis of gechavim right here. The psul the Raisa. It's possible to because they're not shaykh to to the whole of Gittin. Uktani. Someone answers, no, it's only impossible. You know what's possible? Because we're following Rabbi Loza. The Amad Eidim Mesidikai. According to Rabbi Loza, when it says in the Torah, because of it, we're talking about Eidim Mesida. They're the ones who, because of your right to get, the Venosa you have to give in front of Eidim Mesida. They're the ones who affect to get. The Eidim that we have in the star is only a Takana Tikkun Olam to make it easy for the woman. If one day she has to produce proof that she was divorced, she has a star. So it's only the Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, and therefore, when we have goyim signing on the get, it's only a psul d'rabbanan because maybe you're going to rely on them solely. But what happens? We cannot find the Eidim Mesid, and the husband questions the validity yet, and we rely on the signatures. But they're really goyim, and therefore it's a psul d'rabbanan. We're only worried that might happen. Well, we try to say for we'll learn in two missions. Now, Rab Shimon says that these are osa kosher, like goyim. That what? That if by even a get of a woman if goyim signed as kosher, because why? And what Rab Zedek Rab Shimon because he follows Rab Loza maybe say the kosher. Therefore, we don't care, and he's not worried that you rely on the Eidim. Mikal Tanakama Saba lawyer must be the Tanakama does not follow Rab Loza Eidim see the kosher. Goes back to the question. So it's an east in the Torah. These are the only Eidim we have. There's no, and yet we accept it. Yes, it's mentioned as one of the three examples where Gittin Noshim are equal to Shechur Avodim, and Stigmara Ike B'nai Hashem Yivakim. Everyone agrees to Eidim and Siddur. But the Tanakama holds that sorry, Shimon holds, what happened? These are obvious Goyish names, Christine, or Chris, whatever, Goyish names that no Yid would call themselves by those names. So then Shimon says, what are we worried about? Eidim and Siddur Kasher. We'll never rely on the, even if we can't find Eidim and Siddur, nobody ever going to rely on Eidim. Right away they can tell these are Goyish names. So therefore, Rodriguez, is a name that you don't find by Yidden at all.
Yeah. I came to me wearing black pants with a coat, with a waistcoat over it, his tail rolled up behind his ears, and wearing a baseball cap, so I should know he's Jewish. And he's telling to me, with the Hamish, the accent like this, and he's being Mishabech, he's scared, this is the best of that. He gives me his business card, Christopher, whatever his last name was. Christopher, he said, I tell you, you took a Goyish name to the.
Okay, maybe he didn't realize.
I said to him, you could have chosen your name is Shmuel Yaakov, you could have called yourself Sam, but it would be good enough,
Okay, but Tanakama holds even a name that is obvious, a Goyish name, we don't want that to be, but we're still Goyish. We're Goyish that people out there don't realize that Goyish names are uniquely Goyish names. They'll use it for themselves, and therefore, whatever. So the mother, okay, what about Chazara? You said before it's coming to negate the case of Chazara. According to Rameir, sorry, you said why it says 3 years to negate the case of Chazor. If you change your mind, that's a din of the Torah. That's a din of the Torah. The fact that you change your mind, according to Rameir, you can change your mind side by an Eved because it's a chayv to them. Side by get, and she's no longer divorced. That's Mahat Torah, right? Because the moment he canceled the shlichus, she is a married woman. Even with the Eved, she marries somebody else. She is a married woman. And the same thing with the Eved, has no right to go out and marry a Bas Chayden. So that's Ma'atayda. You just said that he only talks about Din Rabban. So we change our mind. Ella. Kitan Emil said the less a big Kedushin. We're only talking about things we don't apply Kedushin. Therefore, Mechuber and Lishma apply to Kedushin as well, because it says the Yatzah, so we compare all the laws of Kedushin to Gittin. But Milsa the Isa B'Kedushin like Tani. But things that apply to Kedushin we don't mention, like Mechuber and Lishma. But the other din, like the Fana Nechtev, and those din we don't mention by Kedushin. By Kedushin, let's say even by going signing, what's the worst thing going to think? That she thinks that she thinks that she's married when she really isn't. What's the big deal? Nothing wrong will come out of that. Because she thinks she is married, so she won't live with other people. By Gittin, there's a big problem. If she thinks that she's divorced when she isn't, she'll live with another person, she'll produce Bishul Ish. But here, so she thinks she's married. There's no Isa that Isa will venture from that. So the Gemara, the law of Chazar applies to Kedushin as well, because it's a chay for her when she gets engaged to you. She's now usher to the rest of the world. So it's a chay for her. So the chayda that did apply to both. You just said anything that applies to Kedushin apply. So Gemara answers, Bishlichus Bal Kocha. We are talking about a case that the kind of shlichus that you have by Gittin, which is I don't need her consent to accept the get. I don't need the Eved to consent to receive the get. I can tell a shlich, go bring them a Bal Kocha. That's what they have in common. But Kedushin, you don't have that. By Kedushin, you cannot force her to get married to you. So therefore, Gittin and thing have something in common, and that's the chiddush over here. In other words, we would have thought that by Gittin, because you don't need their will, you don't need their acceptance, we would have thought there's a chiddush. We would have thought by Chazar now that the moment you appointed the shliach, they're already divorced. When we say that a chayv for you cannot be zoicha when it harms them is when they have a say. I don't want it. But since she has no say, since the Eved has no say, so we would have thought this is an exception that even though it's bad for them, the moment you gave it to the shliach, they're already divorced because there's nothing that they can do. And the chiddush is that no, you can still have chazara, but you can still change your mind. Mashaying by kedushin, there's no chiddush you can change your mind. It's bad for her. It's up to her. As we know, Ishanik is medaito. She has to consent, and therefore there's no chiddush involved there. That's why we only talk about Gittin.